It's supposed to be going live, but I'm not sure
It
what it.
says it is.
Oh, it
Yeah.
is. Okay. All right. Well,
Mhm.
okay. For some reason, it's not doing its final little thing, but okay. And there we go. Good afternoon, and welcome to People Making Money, one of the Way to Wow shows. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel, and we are here every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time, 3:30 p.m. East Coast time, and we talk about all things related to building a career, building a business, building wealth, all financial related matters in our lives. And today I am really excited to bring back someone who was on one of my other shows just a few weeks ago, Vonmarie Thomas, someone who's quickly become a friend of mine. We talk on a regular basis. Super super bright young woman who has built her career as an accountant. And I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, my mother basically wanted me to be either a lawyer, a doctor, a lawyer, or an accountant. And of the three, accounting seemed to be the worst because my mother was an accountant and she hated it. And the prevailing opinion about accountants was they had no personality at all. Now, I have since been disabused of that notion. I spent many years working with the California Society of CPAs. We planned a lot of events, and I have to tell you, accountants are some of the most fun people to work with. Maybe it's because the numbers they have to deal with are so boring, so that the rest of their lives have to be exciting. But one of my very long-standing friends who's an accountant also is a sailor. He has sailed all over the place. Plus, he and his wife travel a lot. He's a fascinating guy. So and that's general when I've gotten to know accountants, that's generally what I found out about them. So this is by way of saying, for those of you who are thinking, oh no, accountant, this is going to be boring. No, it is. I assure you, it is
No.
not. Okay. Actuarials, maybe, but not accountants. So I want to welcome Vonmarie, kind of welcome you back, although this is a different show. But thanks for joining me again.
No, thank you for having me again. I love talking about money. I love talking about fun things, of course, but I guess it goes to show, yes, accountants have personality. And the numbers are perhaps they can be the boring part, but I think the results that you get are more fun, and seeing people's lives change as well with the work that you do and making a difference that way is super fun to me. That's the only reason why I'm still doing this. Otherwise, I'd be studying how to make shoes and design jewelry or something. Something
Right.
fun. I want to play with diamonds, something fun and glamorous.
Play with diamonds. I like that. So as is my practice on this show, I want to take you back as far as you're willing to go. Maybe you're, a young girl, grade school even. Um, I think as kids, we all have ideas about what we're going to do, when we grow up. And it seems like that's kind of the standard question we get from adults when we're, what are you going to do when you grow up? I had to answer that question multiple times. At one point I said I was going to be an engineer, and the people said, "Oh, that's what your dad does." I said, "My dad drives trains," because I meant like an engineer, like a train, guy who drives trains, right? I was going to be an astronaut, of course I became neither. So it's always interesting to hear, what did you think, you might do when you were, very, very young?
So the craziest part about all of this is I actually became exactly what I said I was going to be.
Wow.
I know it's very rare to hear, but
Uh-huh.
I think Well, when I was a kid, I didn't have all the pressures. My mom raised me, so she didn't really pressure me to pick any particular career. I did follow the money because I grew up in Washington Heights. I grew up, single parent home, just seeing all the struggles, and I think that pushed me more and more to working in a space where I could make money easily
Mhm.
and quickly, even if it was hard. Like my first courses in college for accounting, I almost failed. Most of them, most of the beginner
Wow.
courses. Yeah, but I literally stuck through it. Like the friends that I had in college, we all studied together. I just had like a really good support network, and things worked out. But I worked really hard to just understand the theories and the topics. It's not it's not intuitive, I would say, if you have no background at all. Um,
And I'm guessing
so
you didn't have any family members or friends of the family who were accountants, anything like that.
a distant cousin, but I didn't have a close relationship with her until like later on in my college years,
Hmm.
where she became kind of a mentor to me. And she was a director at one of the big four firms. So then I kind of had some guidance there, but otherwise it was just me applying for every program and doing after school program and applying for the internships and just really going out of my way to expose myself educationally and change the rooms that I was in.
Hmm.
And usually it I was the only person on my team that looked like me, and I I've stopped caring since, because it's so common nowadays in my life that I'm the only person that looks like me in a room, that I don't even notice. So it's really, I mean, it's fun for me. I love it. I love it.
And
But
so,
yeah.
um, when you were, let's if you don't mind
Mhm.
going back a little before college. So you were
Mhm.
when did you decide you were going to go into accounting? Was that literally as a child? Was it in high school? Where did that decision get made?
I I've actually done therapy and concluded that the decision to become an accountant came before I even made a conscious decision. I think it was an unconscious decision
Okay.
from an instance I had in my childhood where I think I was like trying to count something, and whoever was with me at the kitchen table was like slam their hand down on the table, and it startled me, and I felt like I needed to be the best counter of anything and everything. And
Uh-huh.
so I've always really pursued STEM, even though I have a creative's heart. Like I love
Mhm.
everything colorful, creative. Like I love the arts. Like my clients are usually in that background. I just find myself connecting so easily with them. But my brain works like an accountant. Like I just want to be the best that I can and do the best work that I can too. So I think it was when I was very young. I can't even say the age. I Whenever you get homework where you have to count pennies and things like that, I think that was the age when I had that shock, that really I almost like took that trauma and turned and like carried it my whole life and turned it into a career. It's like
Right.
it's just bizarre. I'm like, how could you take this fear and just let it lead you all the way here?
Well, I would say, at least in your case, it led you in a positive way. Some of us, right, we let our fears lead us in very negative ways. But in your case, it really led you in a great career direction. So, when you were in, grade school, junior high, high school, how did you do in math? Which one would assume is kind of the base for then
Mhm.
going on into accounting.
So I used to sleep in class. Like that was me. I would just like tell people around me, just wake me up when the teacher starts handing stuff out. Like, I'm just gonna take a nap. I remember my commutes were so long. Well, actually, they were long in high school. That's when I was actually sleeping in class. And math was easy for me until it became something where I had to deal with concepts like accounting concepts and accounts and different and chart of accounts and financial statements and like how they group differently. That's when I actually needed to be awake. So I think that was why I almost flunked out of my accounting classes. I was just so used to taking it easy. Um, that yeah, I mean, and I was always at the top of my class too, so things just I was just strolling through the classes. It was super easy for me. um
So
from
let me ask you this.
Mhm.
If someone is struggling with math, what would
Mhm.
you say to them about going into accounting, i.e., don't do it, or, it's still an absolutely viable, career choice? What kind of advice would you give them? Because I like my daughter struggles with math, which mystifies me because math was always one of my best subjects. And the thing I love about math is you could always check to see if you got the right answer. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, English, you can't do that, but math, you can, right? And
Mhm.
so I think that's one of the reasons I liked it so much, is I could make sure I had the right answer, before I turn my homework in. But I think a lot of people struggle with math. In fact, I once did a show called "It's Not Math, It's Money," because I think people
Mhm.
can relate to money better than they can to math, right?
Yeah.
So for those sort of math phobics, what would you
Hmm.
say about going into accounting?
You can still go into accounting. I'm actually bad at science and bad at doing math in my head. Like, don't, like, I can probably calculate the tip on a bill pretty easily, but that's to the extent that I do mental math. I still use my fingers. I still draw numbers in the air. I still use pen and paper, a calculator. It's on my shortcuts on my phone. Like, I'm not naturally good at like doing math in my head,
Okay.
but give me some tools, give me an Excel sheet. Very good. I'll calculate anything you want, whatever you want, I'll calculate it for you. um that's I guess you don't need, it's not, yeah, being good at math I don't think is the key to being a good accountant. A good accountant really thinks about their clients, thinks about strategizing ways to make things easier for record keeping or for calculating KPIs or having metrics just being one click of a button, right?
Mhm.
And using dashboards, things like that. Like that for me is a good accountant, someone that can really get ahead of the issues that their clients might have, and being able to be proactive in that way and plan. And also being really good at communicating as well. That's super important. Sometimes people think that an accountant is going to be locked up in a room, just calculating things on a calculator, and it's not the case. Um, I think a lot about systems and like the business areas
Mhm.
for my different clients and where they could have more efficiency and how I could probably maybe even introduce them to some kind of tech add-on that would save them 3 hours a week, or introduce them to someone that could help them with opening up a retirement account because they're paying taxes on money they might not need to.
Mhm.
So things like that is what I think makes a good accountant.
And that certainly makes sense, and it comports with the experience I have. I was surprised when I was involved with the California Society of CPAs. I was surprised how many accountants they go out to see their clients. They walk through their places of business. all that kind of stuff. It's like they were not in the office, a lot of them, but and really did the especially the successful ones had a high level of interpersonal skills, I guess what we call emotional
Mhm.
intelligence now. So very much so. Okay, so you're getting through high school. Um, how did you decide which college you went to?
Hmm. I knew that I needed my first I really wanted to work on Wall Street.
Mm.
For some reason, I was infatuated with the thought of working on Wall Street. I ended up having a client on Wall Street when I was in audit, and I was like, okay, great. I checked the box off. I don't need to do this ever again. Like I can just move
Yeah.
out of the state, out of the country. Bye. So, um,
I'm laughing because I had a colleague here in California who badly wanted to go to Wall Street. He had grown up like a poor farm boy kind of thing, right? And he wanted to be, he was going to work on Wall Street, right? So he moves to New York, and he's like, he was so glad to get out there and come back to California after a few years. It's like,
listen, it's hilarious the things that we imagine are so luxurious and such a great experience. I don't know what I thought what was I mean, I just wanted to be close to the business world. As soon as I got out of college, I didn't want to deal with having a gap where I didn't have a job because I just couldn't afford not having a job. I couldn't afford not having money coming in from somewhere. So there was a grant or an internship I took it because I didn't have choices, essentially, like the luxury of choice. So for me, I'm like, oh, work on Wall Street. Let me get a degree in business. Let me study somewhere that's a good school, but also close to home, and gave me the best financial aid package.
mhm.
So that was the university I ended up attending, Fordham University in the Bronx, and I loved it. I loved my experience there. The friends I have, I still have to this day, and we're even still doing Friendsgivings, and it's gonna be 10 years or more
Wow.
since I graduated.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I've had the best time, the best professors, the best deans, the best opportunities. I left nothing on the table when I went to college. I really enjoyed every part of it.
Okay. And so now, you got a bachelor's degree, I assume, or
Yes, it's a
okay.
bachelor's of science. I did get the what I did a focus on a specialization on international business.
Oh,
And as a result of that, I did study emerging markets. Like the class I took was based on the Brazilian market, the Brazilian economy.
oh, okay.
So yeah, we got to go to Brazil as a part of the classwork and visit different banks. And I just fell in love with the Brazilian culture, the food, the people, and I love all the vibes in Brazil, and their economy is actually super interesting. Um, Something I realized when I was taking the class was that the favelas are all in the mountain, and coming from a place here in New York, I like the high rise buildings have the best views. And it's just ironic that the best views are in the favelas. Like they're in the mountainside, they have the best views overlooking the ocean, the mountains. And I think that it's precious, like to
Right.
be able to, look outside and see that.
Hmm.
Um, Coming from a place where there's buildings everywhere, and you barely get to see the sky once you're inside of a building here in New York City.
Right. Hmm.
So I just had a appreciation for that, even though I know that it's like not easy, the life that people live, coming out of the favelas and living inside of them, it's really rough.
Hmm.
So Yes. Wait, I feel like I lost track of your question
Oh,
in
oh,
that.
so you were you got a degree in international business. Your focus was on emerging markets, in particular Brazil, and um, I mean, first of all, to have that international experience, I think is really amazing because I don't think most college students today even, get that. I know I didn't. I had an opportunity to go study architecture in Italy, but I frankly couldn't afford it, So I stayed
Mhm.
home. A few of my colleagues went, but um, so with a degree in international business, how did that then lead you to accounting and taking the CPA exam and all of that stuff, right?
So one thing, well, I'll clarify two things. My degree is in finance and accounting, and then
Oh,
I guess the major was accounting. Then you have the finance piece, it's like the sub major, and then I had this other specialization for the international business portion. So there was that part of my degree. And then for the CPA, I actually studied many years, but I never passed the test. Like I never
oh,
pursued
okay.
the full certification for that. Hmm. So it's been interesting. It's been an interesting like journey overall, and my decision to not take the exam and pursue my business in this way. So it's more about what I want to like, what kind of documents I want to be responsible for or be signing, and at what level, and who I'd be essentially doing, what kind of work I'd be doing. So I really enjoy the work that I do as it is now, and I feel like I'm very good at studying things that I need to study and learning them.
Mhm.
So that's what I do if I need to brush up on anything.
So this is really interesting because when people think about accountants, this is what I did, right? I think, CPA, right? And yet, I mentioned my mother a little while ago. She was never a CPA. I mean,
Mm.
she could do what a lot of what CPAs did, but she kind of came up through the ranks, so to speak. She would have said she was a full charge bookkeeper, but the reality was, she had very complex knowledge. She didn't prepare tax returns. She didn't want to, which I think is one of the reasons
Exactly.
why she didn't become a CPA. So,
Exactly.
and I think this is a really interesting career choice you made. And I want to really focus on this because I think it shows that there are alternative career paths within an area. And so, people have choices when they perhaps don't realize they do. So would you talk about, you said, well, you ended up deciding not to take the CPA's exam. And so
Mhm.
talk, how did that decision come about? What were the things that you looked at, and why, in the end, did you, make this decision?
So I came to that conclusion, and now I can always change my mind and go back and study for it. But at the same time, I was tired of studying for the exam. I got to the point where I almost passed by like 3 points, and
Mhm.
I had hired a tutor that year. I had done literally the most to study for the exam. And something about me, I've never been very good at taking standardized tests.
Mhm.
And the test experience for me here in New York City, it was just so much. It was it was such like large efforts that I had to put in. I had
Mhm.
to take the day off. You had to start, like I was just not interested anymore in being shaken down at the Prometric Center, put your pockets inside out, flip your socks inside. It was just ridiculous. I'm like, what am I answering? Prison? Like I was tired of going back for for that experience. And I'm like, I think I'm done. Like the pressure was very much, it was too much for me. And at the end of the day, the thing that I'm actually really good at is like strategy and logistics and efficiency. Those are my things. Like if I can streamline someone's accounting systems and all of the transactions that come in and out of their business,
Mhm.
that's all I can do and all I want to do. I don't want to deal with the IRS. I don't want to deal with I don't want to deal with, I don't want to sign any documents for any public companies. I'm not interested in holding quarterly um calls to discuss the financial statements and public I don't care. I just I'll invest with the money I make. I'll be an investor, but I just don't need to be the one signing the documents. And frankly, that's the conclusion. I had to be very honest with myself
Mhm.
as to what the end goal and what the point, like what did I actually want to be doing, and did it require that particular expertise.
Mhm.
And so the other thing that I've also been very good at is equipping, well, I don't know if that's even a word, but anyway, is is really getting together a really strong network of accountants, of other people who are CPAs. They want to be in the weeds, they want to sign the financials, they want to do this and that. Fantastic.
Mhm.
Let's partner up because I know how to do the work that will get us to here. And also, it's not cost effective to hire a CPA for things that you don't need a CPA for,
Mhm.
right? So that's the other thing. I think that with my expertise, I do have an audit background. Like I worked in public accounting, auditing, um, like manufacturing companies and what else? Insurance and banks as well, insurance companies and banking institutions. So having seen what's necessary for that, I'm like, okay, I'm very clear. Like if I wanted to be a CFO, I still could be. There's obviously things I could study and essentially equip myself with. I
Mhm.
can definitely do that. I don't need to work at a level where at my public company levels. Like it doesn't, I didn't need it.
So
Mhm.
I'm just you mentioned several factors that impacted the decision. One was the frustration with the whole testing process. And again, this is something that I'm familiar with, not for myself, but my older sister always struggled with taking standardized tests. She's a very intelligent woman, but it's just, and my dad was the same way, very smart guy, but somehow when it
Mhm.
came time to, putting that pencil to paper, it just it you know I it, it was such an upsetting experience basically for them that they couldn't get through it. And my sister recently passed the therapist exam. I mean, it was a huge thing for her to do that, something she prepared for years and years and was very scared about because of this whole sort of background. So it's interesting that I think sometimes we feel like, well, I have to overcome these things. I have to be able to do this to prove myself. Your attitude seems to be to me more of, okay, there's an obstacle here. How do I deal with the obstacle more broadly? Do I have to go over it, or can I kind of scoot around it, or can I just
Mhm.
ignore it? And what is going to work best? And then you were able to, and this is what I'd like to hear more about if you can. How did you gain the breadth of view to then understand that in the end, having that, that CPA actually wasn't really going to help you, meeting your professional objectives, right? Somehow you figured that out. Was it through, being involved with public accounting and what you had to
Mhm.
do there, or how did you figure out enough about the larger accounting business to realize in the end, I don't need this to be the professional I want to be?
So I've always been an accountant, like out of college. The internships that I've had, most of them have been in some accounting or finance related roles. So I've been in the industry since like my high school years,
Mhm.
literally. So I have over 10 years, even more of experience of being exposed to corporate America, just working on different functions of a finance team. And that has given me the information I need to see what the people on my team do and what their certifications are and what their tasks are, what their responsibilities are as well.
Mhm.
And do I want to be doing that? Do I want to essentially move up in the ranks in that direction? And it just became very clear that what I wanted was a life of entrepreneurship. I wanted financial independence, location independence, and independence of time.
Mhm.
So those are the things that are guiding me at this point in my life. I just became very clear on the values that I was going to use to guide myself. And it became less about the obstacle of not having a CPA,
Mhm.
right? Because if you are like good at doing research, which I am, I'm really good at finding out the answer to something. I'm super resourceful and I'll figure it out. I will. And and that's all you need. If you can pick something up and learn it, then that's all you need. And also being very observant of the people around me and all the different roles that I've had in my own career. It's been really important to see, like, what is this person doing with their CPA? They work so hard to be here in this part of their career, and I didn't want it for myself. So it just became very clear to me that there were other ways.
So it sounds, and please correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like
Mhm.
you just kept yourself very open to learning from other people, from other experiences, or from experiences that you had, and you kind of absorbed all of that and then filtered it through, who is Vonmarie, right? And in the end, you were able to come up with kind of a synthesis that really um, that really allowed you to express who you were. And I think most people don't associate that with being an accountant, right? An accountant wears a gray
Mhm.
flannel suit, and, right, and all these sort of stereotypes that we have, right? um you know you had a very strong sense, or well, did you have a very strong sense of who you were always, or is that something you've developed over your professional career? How did that come into being?
Yeah, so it definitely took a lot of years of therapy and also noticing when I hated a certain experience that I was having and feeling very helpless about it. So that made me very sad. And so I was looking for, I did do like group therapy. I did work, like, I didn't work there, but I did volunteer as a coach eventually in the landmark programs.
Mm,
And I spent, I think, maybe a year and a half doing their programs. And I just learned a lot about myself and really creating anything out of literally nothing,
mm,
just an idea and how to communicate that and how to get people on board, how to get the things that you needed to meet the goals that you wanted to meet, right? Like, and I also became very clear that I don't need to be everything to everyone.
mhm,
And so that just helped really get myself clear, allowed myself to become very clear about how I wanted to do the work that I wanted to do. And then when you know how you want to do the work that you want to do, you can start to kind of piece together the different areas of the things that you need. Like I needed a flexible work environment. What does that look like? I needed some kind of stable income. I also wanted to still be in touch with my clients. Like that was the thing that I did literally the best. And in the audit world, if your clients hate you, I don't know how good of a job you're doing. Like at the end of the day, you do want to keep like the accounting field, I feel, is very small. Everybody knows each other,
Mhm.
and you can come across someone that you worked with back in the day very easily. Like I've been connected with people here, referred to for networking in other states. And then it turns out they worked at the firm that was like down the street from me when I was also there at the same time. So the accounting industry is super small. And I'm just very clear that like we want to leave our clients with a good experience at the same time, even though we have regulatory requirements
Mhm.
to uphold. And that's super important. But at the end of the day, it like that was important for me. Just
Mhm.
maybe it's a cultural thing. Maybe it's my Dominican culture coming out that I just, want to have camaraderie when I'm doing the work and have fun.
Mhm.
Um, but my clients did love me. Like my clients did. Like that was the feedback I always got. They wanted me to come back for the next year or something like that. And that's how you know you're doing a good job. That's what I use to measure it. So nowadays I keep about the same metrics in terms of knowing, like, are my clients happy? Like, is there anything I can add on or help them with? Like, it's more about the client service these days, and I enjoy it very much. Mhm.
So this is a good segue point. So you're a woman whose heritage is from the Dominican Republic, and you mentioned earlier that in you didn't see other, women like you, as you were going through your process, and yet it sounds like, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, that nonetheless you
Mhm.
were able to learn from other people, other accountants, other your fellow students. So how did you bridge, or did you truly feel there was a gap there that you had to bridge? And if so, how did you bridge that I don't call it an identity gap, I guess. I'm not
Mhm.
sure
Mhm.
exactly what to call it.
Yeah, I think I would call it an identity gap, or I guess, yeah, it is an identity because I am not seeing people like myself.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I feel like kindness goes a long way,
Mhm.
right? And being courteous. So things like that, and also kind of being observant to the things that they like. When I was spending a lot of time at the clients, like I was seeing them get their coffees, I would see what they would wear, the things that they liked, or if I overheard a conversation somewhere, I'm like, oh, that person is into this kind of music. Or and so things like that, picking up on information like that allowed me to connect with people more. I guess I was just seeking the connection
Mhm.
subliminally by being observant,
Mhm.
and that allowed me to build better relationships. And sometimes we'd go out of our way and grab donuts for everyone at the office, at the client, and that made such a difference. I think we got emails from the client, and I remember that I was put on this client, and the they had told someone had told me that they're like, oh, that client hates us as auditors. And I was like, what? They put me on a client where they hate the auditors, and I'm gonna be on the team, and it's just me and my senior. How, like, I just, it was intimidating to walk into an environment like that. So automatically I'm going in with the mentality that I almost have to win these people over, and I cannot like repeat. And I don't know the previous team. I don't know who was on the team before.
Mhm.
I have to go in and I have to make sure that this year's audit goes by smoothly, and that we, create connection with the client that leaves them happy to work with us again. And by the end of that job, we had emails from partners with the being forwarded from the client that they loved us, that they were happy with having us in the office. And I just I felt good about that. I felt really good. And I think that was one of the years I did my best work in that part of my career. So I learned a lot. I was able to customize like some ways of doing the work that I was doing. I wasn't just repeating last year's work, which
Mhm.
is common in the audit space. I was just finding ways of being more efficient or different ways to think about the grouping of information and how we were going to analyze it on
Mhm.
a high level so that we could write our reports. So I spent time thinking about that. I just it was just cool. And then I realized I'm like, okay, there's some entrepreneurial spirit here.
Mhm.
Maybe I don't have to stick to the dreary corporate vibes.
Mhm.
I can make something of my own.
Have you um have you always sort of naturally been a relationship creator, if to sort of coin a phrase? Because it sounds like the through thread and everything you've talked about today is your desire to create connection, to create relationships, um, for the mutual benefit, right? It was never just for your own benefit, although it certainly did benefit you, but for other people's benefit as well. So where did that ability come from to be able to be the kind of person who connects with people and kind of draws them out, perhaps, or whatever way you had of developing those relationships?
Mhm. So I think I was a pretty reserved kid myself. I would say I was I wouldn't say I was the weird kid. Maybe I was the quiet, the smart kid, the kid that just the goody two shoes, but it wasn't flashy. Like I didn't have all the cool stuff, right? Like I was the nerd. And that experiencing like being a nerd and not and having like the same friends all the time and not really opening up your horizons, I realized that I guess it comes down to realizing that your immediate network, like that's as good as you're gonna be in your life. Like that environment, that like that you're limiting yourself if you are only having those same experiences. So when I realized that, I it made me want to grow. It made me want to grow when it came to like I didn't just want to be book smart. And I noticed that people that were successful were not only smart, they were also good with people. And that is super important to me. So then that's when I realized I'm like, I don't want the same old friends. I want to be able to have friends that maybe I travel with, or friends that do business with me, or friends that teach me something new. Like someone is using AI for certain phone calls, and what are the results? And I want to know. If I don't have to learn it the hard way, I want to learn it from someone I like and someone that will reach out. And I enjoy it so much that I just kept it going. Like I just it didn't pay me to be reserved and keep the same circle friends and talk
Mhm.
to the same people about the same things. It didn't pay me to do that. So then I guess, yeah, that's where I ended up here.
I mean, it's so fascinating. This is one of the reasons why I love talking to you. Is I mean, I went through a very similar metamorphosis when I was in school. I was the quiet one. I mean, uh, when I finally cut school in high school, I think it was for one day, and I was at that point I was able to sign my own notes because I was living with two friends. And I signed the note, please. I wrote the note to the senior secretary. Please excuse Kevin for having missed class. Kevin had a doctor's appointment, right? Like for the entire day of class, sign Kevin, right? And I hand to the senior secretary, Mrs. Sullivan. She looks at it and she goes, "Oh, thank God." She gave me an excused absence just because she was so glad I finally did something that I shouldn't,
A good excuse.
but it was kind of eye-opening for me, right? That sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission, right? But I really think you've hit on such a tremendously important idea here that if we want to grow, we have to open ourselves up to other people who have had different experiences than we did, and be willing to learn from their experiences, and indeed it does give us a step up, right? Instead of having to go through the hardship ourselves, listen to somebody else who went through it and go, okay, well then maybe I don't have to make that mistake, right? So so you spent a few years in I'm gonna get on with your story because we're gonna run out of time.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you did several years in public accounting, had a by any measure, great success there. I mean, to turn a client around from, I don't want these people back in my office, to bring her back next year, every year, right? That's tremendous success no matter what business you're in. So how did you go then from traditional, sort of public accounting role to what you're doing now? What was that process like?
So I always, when I do begin an endeavor, so anything in my career, any projects I take on, I do think about the end result. And I was pretty strategic going into public accounting that I wanted to see as much as I could in the time that I was there. Like, I almost didn't care too much about being promoted, more so than I wanted to learn the different industries and see where I wanted to work, right? Because it kind of determines like the industry that you do, like how do you prove yourself as an accountant if you don't have the background or the expertise for the particular industry you're trying to go work in.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, let me see if I switch departments, let me learn a different industry. Like I've always liked investments, I've always liked finance, always. So I said, okay, let me switch out of this commercial insurance, let me go into insurance and banking, let me see what that is like. And I loved it. I was like, okay, it's pretty standardized, there's definitely more regulation, but I just thought it was more fun. Like I love seeing the ins and outs. It feels like I'm peeking into like the factory of money a little bit when I get to see like how banks work and what they invest in and why they invest in them and what metrics they use to decide if it's a good investment or not. All of those things were really interesting to me. So then I said, okay, I probably do want to work in banking. I probably do want to guide myself and lean on that. I feel like after doing audit work in that space, I said, okay, I could probably work in something like this. I would see how my clients would come into work, at what time they would come into work. So I was just very observant about the quality of life that my clients were living. I'm like, these people look like they're struggling. I'm good. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go to where I can enjoy my life the most. And banking was it for me. I loved it. I loved it. And so I was able to find the small team of I guess a smaller like family office style bank in Midtown. And I'm still friends with most of the people I worked with while I was there. And it's been like more than 3 years since I worked there. And I still love them all the same. They still, text me for the holidays and for the birthdays. And likewise, like I just made such good friends working there. So I loved
Sorry,
it.
let me just interrupt if you don't mind for just a moment. When you talk about a bank, are you talking about an investment bank or a commercial bank?
So they had an investment arm
Okay.
And then
Okay.
they had the commercial arm.
Oh, they had both. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was I think it's like a bank holding company. I think they transitioned out. I forget the name of the proper accounting term for what they switched into
Hmm.
in terms of like financial reporting status.
Hmm.
But yeah, they did have all sorts of investments, and then they did own a bank
Oh, okay.
in another state. So yeah, I was part of the corporate accounting team that
Oh,
did
okay.
like the consolidations and things like that for for that bank.
So you were kind of in-house accounting uh support, if you will,
Mhm,
for this. You said it was kind of like a family office. So it
mhm,
was a family that owned a group of investments, including a commercial bank. And gotcha. Okay.
mhm.
And you said you were there until about 3 years ago, was it?
Well, yeah, I think the pandemic marked the time that I spent up until the beginning of the pandemic. I was there. Um, and I really was able to just learn the different like areas of an accounting team and how important they were and how things were very streamlined. And I loved the manager that I had while I was there,
Hmm.
and I loved the interns that I had. Like, it was just a really great experience. And it was publicly traded too.
Oh,
So yeah, so I was on that team, helping with the financial reporting as well, and it's like the audit support and just preparing the monthly close
hmm.
for the different entities that they owned. And so I just yeah, I learned, I guess that's where I learned I think that's where it helps me in my work now to deal with the trust situation when
Hmm.
a family might own multiple entities or businesses.
Hmm.
And I guess I get to put my consolidation hat on when it comes to those things and kind of think in structures,
Hmm.
and how things need to be reported for the different respective entities. So yeah, that's where I learned that.
Hmm. And so then after that, you went out on your own, you started your own practice, your own accounting practice.
Uh, I spent about 6 months at a on a team, uh, cybersecurity insurance accounting team,
Oh.
and it's completely remote. I guess that was my try at being location independent, like essentially like I could work from anywhere,
Hmm.
and that was a really great experience. Like, I learned a lot about high volume, dealing with high volumes of transactions, and the importance of just having the systems that you're dealing with in accounting work
Hmm.
the first time, right? Because if you have things feeding through a system that has misinformation or calculations that are off, it
Hmm.
throws off your final reports. And so if it's wrong from at the end, you have to go back and comb through the thousands of transactions to
Hmm.
correct that one that one number or something like that. And I was like, okay, there's definitely room for efficiency and in other areas of business. And I did leave my place of work at the time, and I did start my business. I guess I became a contractor, helping out my mentor in Brazil for a few months. And yeah, then I started my business.
Hmm. And what has the transition to from essentially employee to business owner, what has that been like?
It has been so fun. The scariest part is probably the cash flow, like keeping consistent cash flow. Like, it
Hmm.
can be up one month or low another month, and so that might be the craziest part. But I have had the best time of my life in this role, and like working with my clients. Like, I just have so much fun and freedom that I could not, I just don't see myself going back to a traditional role. And the things that I'm able to learn, the things I'm able to get certified in, can customize that as well and really live in the business. So what that looks like means traveling for business, going to conferences, meeting really great people who are values aligned, and just learning, constantly having fun, going for coffees and business lunches and business dinners, and making a difference in other people's businesses as well, because it's like twofold. I have essentially the same issues that my clients have. Like I had to hire my own accounting team myself. And when I got to that point, it's like the shoemaker without shoes. I couldn't believe. I'm like, no, I'm the accountant. I need to do my own accounting. Absolutely not. Like I just don't have the bandwidth to do my own accounting and be accountable to do it every single month as it should be done. So I'm like, okay, look at that. We've come full circle.
So what do you see as your top challenge as a business owner, and how are you dealing with it? We're heading toward the end of the calendar year, so I imagine thoughts of 20. I know for me, I started thinking, oh my gosh, December starts in a few days. I've really got to be thinking, what are my plans for 2024? So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that for your business.
My thoughts, definitely paying the IRS. I was crying a few weeks ago, Kevin. Literally in tears. I was like, I need to get out of the house because I can't believe this is how much I owe. I did an estimate and I have like an Excel sheet where I calculate my taxes, and I'm like, how did I let this just be? After I hired the accounting team, I was able to make like very clear. I was able to see my financial position very clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so clear. I just copied and pasted the number from the profit and loss statement into my Excel, and it just gives me my tax situation. And I said, "Oh my God, I've underpaid by like what I feel is like 5,000, but I haven't. There's some adjustments that need to be made." And I literally was crying. I was
Mm-hmm.
crying. I was like, I can't believe it. Now I need to go figure out how to make more money so I could pay these bills. And I was in shambles. And I tell you, the good thing is, I think that's my biggest issue is just getting the estimates right? Like getting to a place where I'm not scrambling. And it was only after the accounting team. So I understand the difference that I make for my clients because I needed my own version of that help.
Right.
So
It is one of the ironies of business. You mentioned the estate and trust part of your practice. I mean, a lot of estate attorneys, like, they don't have their own trust. They're so busy doing it for their clients, right? They don't have it themselves. They die without a will or whatever, God forbid.
oh my
Right? It's like
goodness.
professionals. Like, how many nurses smoke, right? It's like, we seem to we're so focused on taking care of our clients, we forget that on some level we need to be our own client and make sure that we're taken care of as well.
Yeah, like when they like on the airplane, they tell you to put your mask on first and then put the mask on whoever else needs it. And
Right.
it's like, well, I didn't do that. I
Yes.
almost died.
That's my friend. That's one of my friends, Michael, and my running jokes is put your mask on first, because otherwise nothing else really matters. You're not there to help anybody else, right? I used to tell that
Right.
to my sailors and Marines when I was a chaplain in the Navy. They'd be all freaked out about their families back home or whatever. I say, well, you're in trouble with your job here. How is that going to help out your, family back home? you know,
I feel so
oh
funny.
gosh. Well, we have just zoomed through this hour together. And there's much more we can talk about. So, I'm gonna have to have you back. That's all I can tell you. There's much more to unpack here, but I feel like sometimes I forget to recap some of the things my guests have said, but so
Mm,
much of what you said, I think, is so critical to professional success. The idea that we need to really examine what is it we want to do, where can we use our strengths to the best advantage, not only for ourselves, but for the people that we're serving, our clients, or the company we're working for, or whatever.
mhm,
That's critical. The focus on people and developing people's skills, developing the catchword these days is emotional intelligence, being really connecting with people. I think that's always been a part of business. It's just never quite gotten through in the way that it is today. And I think you are iconic. And I don't mean this to sound condescending, but you're quite a bit younger than I am. We hear a lot about younger people focused on quality of life issues, not just making a tremendous amount of money. And I think your professional journey is an iconic example of that you've been able to build a career path for yourself where you can really enjoy your work, enjoy the people that you work with, that you work for. You probably don't really work for anybody. You even work with your clients, right? And I
mhm,
think that's so important because so there was an article in the Wall Street Journal, I think it was yesterday, about how many people are experiencing, burnout at work higher than it's ever been before. And how do we avoid that? And you can have all the perks you want at the office, I think, but that doesn't avoid burnout. I think it's the kind of um, intentionality that you've brought to the development of your career that has allowed you to flourish, despite really challenges, undeniable challenges that you had, in getting yourself from where you started out with to where you are now. So it's really quite inspiring, and I hope people will take that message and really take your message and internalize it for their own good, because it's it was there. You decided it was all available to me if I was willing to reach out and kind of take a little bit of risk here and there, kind of put myself in a uncomfortable position and make it happen. So before I sign off, I just want any sort of final thoughts that you want to convey.
Final thoughts, I guess definitely if you have an inkling for something and your gut is telling you that maybe it's not the experience you want to be having, maybe there's some communication that needs to happen with someone else, or you have to be honest with yourself. But definitely share what that request looks like, and share and find your community, find your people that are going to get you to the next level, and obviously find mentors along the way. It's okay to say, hey, I really like what you're doing, and just be enthusiastic. I find that that gets you very far as well. And then again, I'll offer myself. I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone wanted to follow up after this interview. I am on Instagram. I am on LinkedIn as well, and I do put out a lot of educational materials for accounting and how to manage your own business. So my handle is at Vonmarie underscore breakaway BA. So yeah, find me and I'm happy to chat.
Great, great.
Thank you so much
And
for
I will
having me.
put I'll put in the show notes both your LinkedIn profile link and your Instagram feed. I see it every morning and it's great. I mean, they're really, just it's a great way to start out the morning with, because it's all very useful, very positive. And to see, you know, your bright face every morning is really a lovely thing. So Vonmarie, thank you so much for joining me again. And I know we'll be in touch, and if I can have you hang on after we sign off like we did last time,
Okay.
to kind of do a wrap up for two of us. But I want to thank all of you for joining us and tuning in. This is our last show for this week, and so we'll be back again next week at 10 a.m. Monday for Trusts and Estates Weekly, 10 a.m. Tuesday for business lessons from the military. Those are all both Pacific time, of course. And then 7 days from today, 12:30 p.m. Pacific time, will be the next edition of People Making Money. And my guest, I think I have a guest next week again. Let me make double sure before I before I make a mistake here. Here we go. And oh, in fact, it was somebody that you introduced me to. Aaron Holtzman is my guest next week.
Oh, Erin.
So
Oh,
yeah,
fun. Okay, cool.
really great guy. So this is going to
Yeah.
kind of be a different, we're going to have kind of accountants back to back here. Aaron took a somewhat different path than you took, but I think it'll make a nice counterpoint to the discussion we had today. So do tune in next week on People Making Money to meet Aaron Holtzman from Austin, Texas. And actually on Monday at 10 a.m., my guest is going to be Roy Gia, who it must be accountant time on my shows. So he's an accountant as well. He specializes in large trusts and estates. He's the director of the trusts and estates practice here in Southern California for Armanino, I believe, is the firm, one of the top 10 accounting firms here in Los Angeles. So he's going to sort of take us into the big focus and on this topic on Trust and Estates Weekly. So I invite you to join me with Roy on Monday. So again, thanks so much for joining me. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Wishing you a great rest of the week and a relaxing weekend. No holidays this weekend, but we got to get set for the December holiday season. So thanks again, and signing off as I always do, Marie, you are my bell. So thanks so much, folks. All the best.